Hello and welcome to the Pro Detailer Podcast. Today we are in Gillingham at KDS Keltec, and we are being joined here by what I can only describe as the dream team of detailing. We have Mr. Mike Phillips.
Hey, glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
And Mr. Kelly Harris.
Thank you, Bert. We meet so often now; it's getting scary. Isn't
I
it?
know it's yeah. We're basically becoming friends.
Yes, that's worrying me.
Yeah, that's up my friend count to 1. But and as we know, so a little bit of background. Mike Phillips started detailing in the 1970s, and Kelly started in the 1980s.
Yes, that's correct.
And FYI, I was born in the 80s. You were both polishing cars before I.
You was 4 when I believe, and I did my first sanding and polishing. I think you was about 3 or 4.
Yeah, I wasn't house trained until I was 11. So.
But Mike, certainly you wasn't born when Mike was polishing.
That's kind of scary.
Back when I started, the staples every guy in America had was turtle wax, Armor All, and rain dance. You know, the basics.
I've never heard of Rain Dance.
No.
You could fix a car with any of those. Well, that's all we had back then.
I've heard of River Dance. That was from the 90s.
No,
but a bit
yes.
different.
River dance. Yeah, this is junk. Just nowadays, it's kind of junky. Not trying to put anybody down.
No, well, don't worry. They're probably too old to see you now.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be a lovely idea to ask you guys to pick 3 things that you think has changed the industry during your sort of tenure, your service, the most. And so, Mike, why don't you take the lead? Pick something that you think has changed the industry significantly and briefly explain why and how.
I'm going to start with the ceramic coatings.
Okay.
Because ceramic coatings did 2 things. One is it gave detailers a way to provide a longer lasting protection with an appearance value that also lasted long. I mean, the price for a detail when you just use the car wax or synthetic sealant was fairly low. Once we got into ceramic coatings, all of a sudden detailers are making pretty good coin nowadays.
Well, in America they are.
Yeah,
we had that discussion earlier.
So it changed our income levels. So just offering a better product at a higher price.
And I suppose that draws in, the higher salary draws in more people and potentially more talent. And, if it's low paid stuff, if you've got yourself a degree or whatever, you're not going to go and work on a kind of $5.50 an hour job.
But of course,
exactly.
Don't forget, obviously, my service as a detailer itself, as KDS, we've seen a much larger uptake of new customers that are interested in a ceramic coating because they now understand the longevity and the durability. So there's been an uptake in just detailing service with me because now there's ceramic coatings on the market.
They can see the benefit. And I have to admit, I'm going to, because I know you're a G-Techer, or you were a G-Techer.
I still am, yeah.
And I'm going to kind of basically, they need congratulating on ceramic coatings because they are responsible, I would say, almost single-handedly for making it a thing. And if anything, so we get called as PVD when we get called up by people who still don't realize we're a trade association, not an actual valeting detailing company. They'll phone up and say, I want my car G-Technicked. And I sit there and go, okay, that's cool. And they say, yeah, just G-Technic. It's become eponymous because actually they just want a ceramic coat.
Yes.
But in their head, G-Technic means ceramic coat. And to get to that eponymous level, you've got it in Germany, flex means an angle grinder. So you walk into a shop in Germany and you say, flex, please, you're going to get yourself an angle grinder, even though flex is a brand. And I think it is that work, all the advertising they've done. And I've seen, the adverts and I've been involved in that world. And I know how much it costs to get a full page in Top Gear magazine display. You're talking big money. And to be throwing that into it, and it's benefited the industry as a whole. So yeah, ceramic coatings, totally get it. It's a kind of first tangible benefit as well that you can see is that make your car easier to wash, and it actually is.
Yes.
Cool. Okay then, Kelly, what do you think? What's the top of your list?
I'm going to use the example of when I started as my own business. Obviously, I've been detailing for 31 years. Before it was known as detailing, but let's go to where my own business started. So I become a full-time professional detailer earning money. Would have been about 14 years ago when the internet was still slow, but the internet was around. And good or bad or lucky, literally my first job as KDS Keltec, I posted on social media, Detailing World forum, and then didn't realize how much that was actually massively helping me as a business attract people from the entire country. So it wouldn't be just local people, word of mouth. It was literally people driving from the full distance of England.
I mean, do you remember the first wax stock? People were flocking to you, people you'd never heard of.
That was actually really surreal because obviously I had no idea what was going to happen because because Mike wouldn't probably realise this, when we was in the UK, just detailing was almost the only platform back then.
But it was the biggest globally, not even just in the UK.
Facebook, all that sort of YouTube was just getting going. So I had a captive audience, and I went to the first ever wax stock, and there was no demos. I was the only person doing a demo and took show cars. And it was quite daunting. Literally, all this crowd of people following me everywhere. And I'm like, what has just happened? Because I've never met anybody outside of my business before, any customers. And they all knew about me and the cars I'd done and told me about their favourite thread I wrote. So I went in straight in the deep end, really. I hadn't seen a transition from not having internet to now having internet or the social media platforms. So, yeah.
Well, I always remember at wax stocks, numerous wax stocks, before we kind of met properly, I, in the good old days, was a smoker. And so I'd quite often be hiding outside round the back, having a cheeky one. And I'd almost always come across you sat on a wall or something, basically hiding.
That is actually, Mike doesn't know this, is actually correct. It was because obviously you get there the day before for the trade.
Yeah.
So I'd pull up and everyone come flocking over and start chatting, asking me, and it'd be random stuff like denibbing tools and sanding blocks, really geeky stuff. And I'd be getting a car ready or whatever I was being to do at the time. I think the first year I had a panel to be able to prep ready for doing some demos. And it was overwhelming. And it was just full on. And then you go to the bar in the evenings and it doesn't stop.
Yep.
And then you get up the next morning.
And none of them are young, pretty women.
No. And then you get up the next morning and then you got the public come in and do the same. At one point, you just have to just empty brain dump. So I'd go and literally, he's right, and this has happened loads. I'd go and find a little corner of the building, get a coffee, and just stand there so no one could see me to sort of have 10 minutes for my brain to stop. Because people are just asking questions all the time.
Were you ever aware of a slightly taller, hairier young man watching you from afar?
No, not at the time.
My concealment skills haven't been lost. It's an amazing thing that's changed. And the thing is, it's only the world that I've known. I've never, pre-internet for me was, again, I was still messing the carpet.
It's a bit different for Mike though, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, Mike lived through a lot. The invention of electricity, colour TV.
The automobile.
Yeah, that too. Polishing horses was really hard. So what's your number two?
In no particular order. I'd say the introduction of detailing clay.
Interesting.
That was because before detailing clay, I know some people may find this hard to believe, but when you had overspray on a car, a lot of times what they would do is they would sand it off. Okay, now the problem with that is sanding would take off the overspray clay, but it also put scratches in perfectly good paint. And then when you buffed the scratches out, you removed more good paint. So sanding would do two bad things to do one good thing, where detailing clay would just do one good thing. It would get the contaminants off.
With a light marring. I mean, you can't really avoid
marring, exactly. Yeah. And I always teach people, look, if you're going to rub clay or one of these polymerized rubber tools, clay mitts, clay towels, clay pads over the paint, you should expect that you're going to induce some level of marring. It's just natural. But it doesn't really take any skill to use detailing clay. You mold it into a pancake and rub it over the paint, and you can get as smooth as glass finish. So, but you can't say that about sanding. Not everybody can sand overspray paint off car paint without screwing it up. So detailing clay enabled detailers to remove above surface contaminants in a very safe way and restore the gloss and prep the paint for the next steps.
Yeah, and it does also now, I mean, when we talk about the decon process, it's almost always what we mean is tar removal, fallout removal, and clay bar. And that is the thing. And so many home users with their little -6s and stuff like that, or little, dual actions, will do that process, go over lightly with a very fine polish and a finishing pad, and they'll put the wax on. And for them, that's kind of, if they get that done in a weekend, that's a weekend well spent. And I know it because I used to do that sort of thing. That was about the level as I went, with Dodo Juice Lime Prime Light and little -6. Absolutely, I
can just remember clay introduced to me, and I started as a business in 8, and
in my head I've got that scene from the American film where there's a bloke on one of those clay spinning machines that are doing like that. And that's when I was introduced to clay and music. And
one of the very early customers come in and said, "Look, hey, I bought this clay bar. It was at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. Paid, I'm not going to say what brand, and I can say how much, £200.
Holy hell.
For a clay kit. Captive audience, certain American, very, very flashy brand that wanted to overcharge, and it was a new thing.
Oh, I know why you're not saying them now.
Yes.
You wouldn't last long in prison.
No. So, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And how much you pay? So it was like, I didn't know, literally 2008, I was literally still using thinners, paraffin, whatever, and then sanding or heavy wall pad to try and get overspray off. I tried it and it was like, what the hell? It worked amazing. And of course, then it started going very popular and the price went down and many manufacturers. But I don't think clay towels and clay bars are actually that old in this industry.
They're not. I remember the first clay towel that I was using, because I've used clay bars for a long time, but I always heat it up in hot water and I mold it and then you turn it and then you drop it and you have to go and get another one and life gets difficult. Whereas the clay mitts, they're so, you can do it just literally just wiping over the paintwork. And I think they mean now that I clay much more often than I used to.
I did leave something out. Besides sanding, people just use the normal rubbing compound.
Yeah.
But again, rubbing compound would remove the overspray or whatever the contaminant would be. But it would also tend, because back then the abrasive technology we had back then was very rudimentary. So rubbing a conventional rubbing compound over car paint to remove a contaminant would get the contaminant off, but then it would also put scratches in the paint and take off paint needlessly. Same kind of idea with sandpaper, but a lot less aggressive. Probably more people would do that than sanding. The idea I was trying to invoke was we didn't have a great way to remove topical defects until clay came along.
Yeah, I think when I started, I actually used denibbers and stuff like that, which is completely the wrong way, but it does.
Yeah, the Body Shop had the sort of razor blades, the plastic razor blades, and you'd literally scrape the surface of the paint. And you think, when I think back now, I think that's just crazy. You'd never dream of doing that, but it was your only option.
Yeah.
We call that caveman technique. There's a lot of caveman techniques out there.
So, Kelly, what's your next game changer?
Okay, let's stick with the internet, because I didn't know at the time, but when I was posting these articles, threads online, like Mike still does now, what you're doing there, you're not completely educating people, but you're giving them information and knowledge and processes. So I didn't realize I was doing that. I was actually doing education, and obviously now I teach a lot, exactly like Mike does. Our roles are teachers. So I say, before people are sharing their information and education, that's been a big game changer.
It's effectively training.
Yeah. It's the education, the training that now is available around the world is really lifting the industry at a rapid rate, I believe, to do better work.
And it's a kind of a mixed blessing, I find, because there's an awful lot of crap, frankly, out there on the likes of YouTube and stuff like that. Other video platforms exist. And you get these sort of, it's these life hacks and stuff like that. And some of them are ridiculous. And some of the manufacturers, a certain water dispersant that's marginally over 39, their formal advertising is suggesting you can, I've got to be very careful here because I wouldn't last long in prison either nowadays. But some of the suggestions of how useful it is in a car detailing environment are frankly libelous. They're terrible. And I see this advice going out, and I've had it because an uncle came to me and said, you can use water dispersant on that. Yeah. And I was like, no, don't. And he was insistent. I had to almost hit him to get him to understand that he was being a fool and that not to believe everything you see on the internet. On the flip side, when you were starting, there was no KDS, there was no Lake Country, there was no, Mike Phillips out there where you could pay a certain amount of money and you could go and spend a day, a week, a month or whatever, learning things properly, hands-on training. And actually, if you think about it, every other trade you can go and learn. So if you want to become a sparky, you can go and learn at, I don't know, electricians university or whatever, technical college probably.
Yeah.
Ditto brick. I've got a kind of a distant relation who's just become a brickie, and he's a tough old time, only 21, gone down the wrong route, but he finally got himself sort of settled, and he's gone and done this bricklayers thing. It's taken him, I think, 6 months, and then he's got another 6 months paid on placement, and now he can go and make good money, basically putting stones on top of each other. Which, I mean, I'm not going to boast, but I used to do that as a kid. I was kind of quite good at it. But
that comes onto a similar subject, though, that you can become a detailer without having any training.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's self-described.
Yes, whereas you wouldn't normally be able to be a bricklayer, electrician, plumber.
Carpenter.
Yeah.
So if you took the education away, then we'd be worse. So I think at least we're not regulated as such, what we teach, but at least it's a very good education from a lot of experience.
That's the next step, isn't it? Regulation. And hell, I've been involved in looking at kind of off-qual and an actual qualification, first step, and then regulation is a matter of sort of rallying government. The problem is that we've got war going on in Ukraine, we've got cost of living crisis going up, and if I start waving a flag saying, yeah, but cars are getting swell marks, I'd like to know you would understand, but in terms of priorities, it's not quite there.
Kind of low on the totem pole.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, think about electricians. If they screw up, people die. If a brickie screws up, people could potentially die. Whereas if we mess up, you have to work pretty hard. I mean, it takes about 1.5 liters of tire remover, I found out, to kill a full-grown man if they're otherwise healthy. Kill them quickly. You know, I think 0.5 liter probably do it, but you have to wait a couple of days. So it's a matter of push and pull factors, and I think that's going to be an issue. And it could even come from, say, insurance companies. If insurance company says, right, we're only going to insure you if you have this qualification, it'll kind of be regulating, particularly then if one of the tabloids or something picks up on a rogue detailer who does £100,000 worth of damage to a car and then runs for the hills. If that kind of goes wide, customers are going to start thinking, hang on, we've got to think about using only guys who are insured. I mean, if one were to engineer a situation carefully, that could be quite beneficial for the industry as a whole, or it could go completely Pete Tong and be wrong. But yeah, no, the availability of training potentially with the leading on to accredited qualification and ultimately regulation. And I know there'll be lots of people listening who think, I don't want to be regulated. But actually, if you are diligent and responsible and you know what you're doing, you do want regulation because it means it'll keep a lot of the crap out and it'll generally be good.
That's what you do for a living. Your organisation tries to do that thing, isn't it?
Yeah, we kind of soft regulation. Yeah. It's just sort of try and support and help rather than boss around. But hey ho, that's one of the things. Okie dokie, Mike, what's next on your list?
I've always been a big fan of talking about abrasive technology. So I was around when the base coat, clear coat paint technology was introduced, and everybody in the collision industry had to switch over from shooting single stage lacquers and enamels to base coat, clear coats. And it's one thing to spray the paint, it's another thing to sand it and polish it. And back then, in my experience, there just wasn't great abrasive technology in any of the compounds or polishes that were out there. So that's come a long ways. And the whole trick with abrasive technology, whether it's a compound, a polish, or an AIO, great abrasive technology enables, we as detailers to remove defects without leaving them behind at the same time. Mm-hmm. So if you have a compound or a polish that can do that, that's great abrasive technology. And in the old days, you had compounds and polishes that were, for better lack of term, were rocks in a bottle. Mm-hmm. And you could rub them or machine apply them to paint. It would remove the existing damage, but it would leave its own marring or scratches behind.
It's like sandpaper. Yeah. If you're going to go down to, you start at say 1500 or you start at 800, exactly. That leaves its new marks, even if it gets rid of the old ones, and you have to go grade and grade. And that's why the polishing systems used to be 3 or 4 step.
It was. And the whole process was to work your way up to finer and finer stuff so you could finally put a coat of wax on, which would fill in whatever the light marring you left behind was. And then that was a good finish. And nowadays we've got compounds and polishes out there that after you're done using them, even the compounds, it looks like, it's been ceramic coated. I mean, it looks good.
Well, we've got, just to add a little bit of meat to the bone here, we've got things called SMATs and things called DATs.
Yeah. Yes.
And DATs being diminishing abrasive technology. And SMATs are, Kelly, points?
I actually don't know.
Super micro abrasive technology.
Right. So guess who has an article on that?
I was just going to show off there. But
I've actually had a discussion the other day with Jay, my front man. Said, look, it's something you're going to have to learn the terminology. I said, and he's like, what? I've never heard of it. And this is interesting that we've been using these products for years. So I picked the bottles up and said, look, one's this, one's that. And he's like, do I need to know? I went, well, funny enough, if I
probably should before going on a podcast.
Yeah. So it just shows that we are using them and we know how to get the best out of the results, but we don't even know the terminology.
Well, the irony is, so I'm an armchair detailer. I don't really do detailing. I read a lot about it. I write a lot about it. I talk to a lot of people who do it. But I probably know more terminology.
Of course you do.
Simply because I am that armchair detailer. And the problem is that in the realms of Facebook, I had somebody come up to me today asking me a technical question. And I was like, well, look, in theory, this is the theory. I don't know if it's true. It could be total bollocks, but it is the theory. And he presumed, because of the position and stuff, that I was a detailer. I was like, you can't, running a not-for-profit trade association, not something a detailer on the whole can do. It's the wrong brain. My brain is I'm just an operator. I'm literally just like a photocopier. I'm like an office equipment. I do a job and it's straightforward and simple. Yet you're the one with 200 years worth of experience or whatever, and yet don't know the fancy acronyms.
No, because I just teach that the compound diminishes down. I do demonstrations of it and how to use it and how to change your method and process and pressure and speed and angles and size of the pad or the pressure of the pad to work with the diminishing abrasive so that you don't leave any defects behind. So I draw a sort of a graph chart showing cut versus time as you're working, and now it's dropping down. But I've never knew the terminology. I've just always called it a diminishing compound, really, when it's a diminishing compound.
So, I mean, the moral of the story is don't trust a man who uses TLAs. But the other thing that's interesting, actually, just slightly extending on that, is that we've kind of done full circle. So we've been testing quite a few in previous mega tests in the magazine. And we did a heavy cut compound test. And all these top manufacturers, we asked to vote for our readers and said, right, and we gave them a list, I think, of about 120 different heavy cut compounds. Said, right, vote for your favorite. Top 10 we got, and we went out and bought them. And we asked the manufacturers, some of them we just said, okay, a brand, people would say Menzerna or whatever. And so we would go to the brand and say, look, this is the test, this is criteria, what's the best product? And can you send us one? So they did. All of them sent us heavy cut compounds, apart from Angel Wax. And Angel Wax sent us a medium cut compound. And we were working on this Audi, which had UHS paint, so ultra high solid paint. And this medium cut compound blitzed all of the others just on this one test. And we're sitting here going, it's taking out the marks quicker and more efficiently and all the rest of it. And actually we had them sent off to a lab at great expense and had highly microscopic sort of photos taken, microscopy. Actually, no, that sounds like a disease, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Like people in white coats and shit like that. And got the pictures back. And we identified that the Angel Wax one was actually a SMAT. It was a highly developed SMAT, and it was a damn sight more effective on UHS paint than the other ones. So we tested it on single stage, we tested it on other more conventional paints, and the field evened out. It was still a perfectly good product, but it wasn't quite leagues ahead. And we didn't know it was a medium cut originally because they call their compound sort of romantic names, which is difficult. Whereas the Germans, they like, we will use numbers and we will call it immortal. I can't do that. Actually, there are Germans in the house. But anyway.
But what you're saying is, Mike, obviously, and I do, but the abrasive technology has moved on massively, isn't it?
And it's not just so we've gone from SMAT to that back to SMAT in certain cases.
Yeah. So the way I explain it, though, is I see things very black and white when it comes to compounds, polishes, and AIOs. And it's either great or it's junk. There's really no in between, because if you take someone's compound or polish or their AIO and you polish black paint, and no matter what your skill, tool or pad, if it's always leaving some form of micromarring, you can't call that great. It's I mean, it's this gray. To me, it's no good. So everything starts with the abrasive technology. It's the first thing that touches the paint. It's what's going to determine the final end results. And you always need these great abrasive technology.
What's interesting, so what's your take on this? Because if you go to any detailer, certainly in this country, go to their unit or even the back of the van, and you will find they will have probably 24 bottles of compound or abrasive. And some is because they've tried some, they didn't like it, never used it. But a lot of it is you need this range because you'll come across a paint, be it, ceramic clear from Mercedes or a single stage paint or a nitrocellulose on old car, and actually suddenly you need a different compound, and your daily go-to, which is great, doesn't do the job. Does that mean that your go-to is no longer great? I mean, this question is: do you need, if you were to build an armory, so to speak, of compounds, and you had to be able to do every single paint type from boats to classic cars, vintage cars, I bet you'd have more than one or two compounds.
Well, and you struck the nail right on the head. So the hardest thing for a chemist to do is create a compound, a polish, or an AIO that works on the widest spectrums of paints. That's the hardest thing.
It becomes the jack of all rather than the master of any. It becomes basically a Subaru Outback. Yeah. It's an off-roader. It's a soccer mum car. It does everything as well, race car.
So that's the challenge. So then some companies are better than that than others. I think there's some brands out there that really have great abrasive technology, and there's some who are they're buying their same powders from the same companies. It's just, it is what it is. But see, the thing is, the only way you'll ever know is to test it on black paint. Black paint shows everything. So I've met people that say, I just love this. What are you working on? It's a white car. Well, you can't even see the micromarkings leaving behind. I don't know. I've used a bunch of stuff in my life that it's just, once I've tested or used it once, I would never use it again. I would never recommend it. And it's just, when you look at someone's line of products, it's fairly easy for someone to launch a line, or an existing company have a line and have a great tire dressing or a great car wash or a vinyl dressing. Those things are pretty easy to dial in and get right. But anything that's going to scratch the surface, that's where the magic has to come in. You've got to have somebody that really knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. A colleague of mine he does quite a lot of vintage cars with original paint, and you've got to be super generous. And he uses.
I do too.
Yeah, quite. And he uses, I think it's Meg 7, and I think is it 7, but it's the one that's no longer sold in Europe because it doesn't meet chemical regs. So he's been stockpiling the stuff.
Yeah, so I probably got 5 or 6 major articles on how to restore antique original paint using Meguiar's number 7, and it's not abrasive.
Yeah, because it's oil, isn't it?
What it really is a plant oil. If you look at the color, it's green. Now they've changed the formula, so now it's white. And I talked to the head chemist. I'm a good friends with the head chemist over at Meguiar still.
I'm not surprised.
and as soon as I bought a bottle, in fact, I got an article on this. It's called, "Say Goodbye to an Old Friend," or "Say Goodbye to a Longtime Friend."
Shit, we did, and I think the title was pretty much the same. We did that in the magazine with Ian. He was literally reminiscing, and he's literally got a cupboard in his detailing bay, which is just old bottle after old bottle of this stuff.
I have some stuff from the 1930s and the 1940s. I got a can of number 7 that's a gallon can that's probably from the 1960s, and I still will shake it up, pour it out, and use it to restore antique paint. So what it is the oil that's in that product has the ability to bring out the full richness of color in the pigments. That's the secret. Plus the oils kind of revive it, because paint gets brittle. So you put massage this oil in, you just bring back the color and kind of the flexibility of the life of the paint.
It's worth noting, though, this is a very different paint technology to what modern cars.
Yes.
have.
Oh, very.
So what we're describing here would not have the same theory practice on a new modern Clio.
And in fairness, I tell you what, if we posted on the social networks, this is a paint moisturizer, it's a paint conditioner, we'd be laughed out of the forum. Exactly. They'd be like, what the hell? What a load of bollocks. Like, it's like that argument with leather conditioner that seems to bounce one way or the other initially. Oh, you moisturize your leather because it's basically an animal, and then everybody says, no, you've got polyurethane over the top. So there's no point. It's all a gimmick. And then you actually see, well, after a year or two, that polyurethane is semi-permeable. So actually there is a benefit of doing it. So to keep doing it. And for somebody like me as an armchair, I just sit there, for God's sake, make your bloody mind up, But no, the current thinking is that leather conditioner is worth doing on leather that is over a year. I will keep you updated if that changes on the great interwebs. I hope you're enjoying the Pro Detailer Magazine podcast. I just want to take a minute to say a massive thank you. Thank you to all those who ordered the hand-wash-only hardback book. We have printed 3,000, expecting them to sell in dribs and drabs, but lo and behold, they're pretty much all sold out. So the good news is we're able to do a second print run, and that's going to be landing with us towards the end of October 2022. And so if you guys haven't got your copy yet, or would like to perhaps order some for gifts for other people at Christmas, dare I say it this early, then they will soon be available to pre-order at www.prodetailermagazine.com. Anyway, thanks again, and back to the podcast. Cool. So, Kelly, your last suggestion for things that have really changed the world of detailing.
So, I mean, you've witnessed this recently with the PVD group coming down for sort of a Pro Plus, Advanced Plus training. So
Pro Plus is something different.
Yeah, it's a bit of it's almost like a Kelly hack that's not special now. I think a lot of people know about it, and I know this wouldn't work with your old-fashioned traditional DAs. So what I mean by that, as I'm going to talk about DAs as a revolutionary product, is your old 8mm Porter cables, your Meguiar's machines. Once they change that orbit or throw, as some people call it, to sort of 15mm and then 21, so the large throw or
the long throw, it's the Bigfoot effect. Yeah.
So these larger orbit machines, essentially the circle doubles. So if just do it really crudely, it's nearly close. 8mm goes to 16mm. Everything is 15mm, so you can pretty much double the size of the orbit. If every single orbit is the same amount between the two, so orbits per minute, you've got twice the stroke. That twice the size circle is twice the cut. So that, before then, I literally would use a DA for the really finicky black paint like Mike's talking about, because the abrasive technology was poorer back then. You could never finish down with a rotary, with a black paint with a rotary or a big ball pad. You can hit holograms. Yeah. Then you tried to use your 8mm orbit, and it was like, it sucked, basically, because it didn't have enough cut to remove the buffer lines. So if you changed to a medium cut pad, a medium cut compound, it then left the micromarine, because the compounds weren't good, which we just talked about. So it was like, it was a 3-step process. So the moment a large orbit machine come out, there was enough cutting ability, with at the same time pad technology and the abrasive technology was moving on. you could get a very good cut levels, really serious cut levels with a large throw orbit machine with certain pads and compounds, but also you can then diminish down quickly, or let's say refine quickly. So if I try to do a one-stepper with a wall pan and rotary, forget it on dark colours. Because you can now do a one-stepper and pull out good defects, but leave a good gloss. Whereas it would be very difficult to do on an 8mm Porter cable, and when you was using their machines, you had rock hard foams, really like rocks in a bottle, as Mike calls it, really chalky, dry compounds that were horrible to buff off. So this has all come at the similar time, but I don't know which come first, the sort of chicken egg, but the larger orbit then set the way, bridged the path, I believe. And then it's like the pad technology and the abrasive technology then started to be adapted to the larger orbit machines. So it feels like, for me, Mike he's been in this industry longer and been with brands, did the abrasive and foam technology. From what I know from Lake Country, we made pads to suit the large orbit machines, because when we was first putting normal pads for an 8mm on a large orbit machine, they collapsed. They just disintegrated, overheated.
I remember that in the early days.
So I think
exploded from the inside out.
Really, having a large orbit machine is then set a new pathway for the abrasives to change and for foam to change.
And I think also there was an element of the old dogs sort of struggling a little bit, because remember the story, and we've heard it many times, but you were in a bar in America just shooting some pool or something, and a bloke comes up and pokes you, and you never told me who it was, but I'm hoping it's not Mike, otherwise we're in trouble. Pokes you there, and he goes, rotary or DA?
Yeah, this is and it's very quickly. And
you turn around. I'm just going to summarize, because I can do it quicker than you. That's what she said. And turned around and said rotary or DA. You said DA. He went, God damn, boy, you ain't even a proper detail. I'm presuming he's from Texas. But it's close enough. That you aren't even a proper detailer because you don't use rotary.
It was a random thing, Mike, for someone that I know well, and it's at a Rennie Door Detailers meet, and I'm just standing with my staff, and I got a real hard prod, and I looked and saw it was, and instead of just introduced himself, he went, answer this. One machine only, rotary or DA. And I just went, thinking in my head, what's machine can I do most with? DA. And he literally, it was the worst, he went, you're not a proper detailer, and walked off.
So I get that question too, and here's how I answer it. I says, although that's a legitimate question, it's a hypothetical question that will never exist, but I would choose a rotary and a DA. And brush those people off, Okay. I learned a long time ago it's a waste of time to argue with people. Don't try to change people's minds. Let them do whatever they want to do.
Well, you've kind of answered a question here. So what we do traditionally, Mike, at the end of these podcasts is we do 10 quick fire questions, and they're not very quick because I usually gob off and we just get into an argument. Kelly's already done them, so we're going to be focusing on yourself. And one of the questions is rotary or DA. So you've basically said both to that. So
I'm going to take both.
You're going to take both. Fair dues. Fair dues.
But I'll tell you, with the rotary,
Mike's allowed to do this. He's that celebrity. He's allowed, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's kind of a big deal, Kelly. Pipe down.
If I had to choose just two tools, it would be rotary and an 8mm DA, because then I can machine sand with it, and I can also do a zillion other things with it. So I can do everything with those two tools. I can't do everything with just one of them.
Okay, well, that's a fair answer. So I'm going to bat on with these other quick fire questions. What is your current car?
Oh God, that's embarrassing. It's
an Altima, isn't it?
No, it's an Infiniti QX50.
Okay.
Yeah. The wife kind of liked it. Me, I'm a traditional four-wheel drive monster truck guy.
Yeah.
The problem is she talked me into moving in this condo that doesn't allow trucks, because she kept saying, oh, it's easy living. We don't got to do any maintenance, no lawn mowing, no taking care of the
But with an
road.
Infiniti, is it worth living? I mean, that's what you got to ask. If you don't have a big block in your life, what is the point of life?
Well, now we've come to the realization that we do not like condo living. The housing market in America is so jacked up. So we're waiting for, hopefully, cross our fingers, prices come down. So we can sell high right now, which is great. We can't buy low. So we're kind of in between, but we're just going to wait until the next presidential election is over, then make a move.
Fair enough.
And then I'm going to get another big monster truck. And my favorites are classic 70s from the late 60s, the mid 70s, and 44-inch boggers, 1-ton running gear, and big block Chevys.
That's the best answer. Well, apart from the Infiniti rubbish, which is just a Nissan underneath, isn't it?
Yeah.
A Datsun.
But I got to, it is a nice car.
Yeah.
Like the air conditioned seats, and It's got a lot of. I know. I'm trying to sell you on this, and I feel it's not working.
No, it's just you're just going downhill. No, stick to big blocks and lifted suspension. That's the way forward. So, what is your dream car? Money, no object.
A Batmobile, 1966 Batmobile.
That's pretty wacky.
Yeah,
that's pretty wacky.
It is. Yeah.
Blimey. Okay. Well,
I'd probably put mine on straight axles and 40-inch boggers, though. So it'd be the 4-wheel drive version of Batman's Batmobile.
So just to translate, when he says boggers, he's talking about MTs, so proper self-cleaning tractor tires, basically.
Exactly. Yes.
And okay, so now this is going to require looking back into the mists of time. What was the first car you ever detailed for money? It didn't have to be a lot of money.
Oh, a Mazda 626.
I liked it 626.
Yeah, it was a nice car.
Yeah, it's like the Z-DOS 6 and the Z-DOS 9. I quite like those too.
What the hell happened to those cars? And they were everywhere at one time.
Well, in the States they were popular. Over here they kind of bummed out somewhat. It was in the days when the Ford Mondeo was popular.
Yeah, then after that it was a 73 green Volkswagen. So the guy that owned the Volkswagen saw me do the Mazda 626, so then he hired me to do his Volkswagen.
So actually, you went downhill originally then.
Before the Volkswagen. There's not a single flat panel on a Volkswagen though.
No, it's all iron oxide nowadays anyway. And okay, so this is a slightly personal question, Mike. How many buckets do you like to use when you're washing a car?
One.
You use one bucket. Now, I know your system, but the people listening might not. So do you want to tell them about your many, many cloths?
Yeah, so I used to be the fan of the 3-bucket system. So one has fresh water, one has soapy water, and then one for wheels and tires.
Yep.
So I guess 2 buckets because I still use a dedicated bucket for my brushes for wheels and tires. But for washing a car, I think the safest way for the average person to wash the car is put about 12 clean microfiber towels in a bucket of soapy water and then wash one panel starting at the top, working your way down. And that way you're never cross-contaminating the dirt from one panel to the next panel by using a single wash mitt.
And sorry, you said microfiber towels, and earlier you did a demonstration. Do you mean microfiber towels, or do you mean like a wash mitt, like a chenille mitt,
well,
noodle
you
mitt?
Could do either one, but when you look at they're going to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I really like the microfiber chenille wash mitts. But if I look at buying 12 of those at about $10 or $15 a pop versus 12 microfiber towels that say anywhere from $4 to $5 for one of those, a good one. It's a lot cheaper to use the towels. It's a lot faster to wash them and dry them and use them over and over again. Plus, I can use them for other things.
You should. I mean, I hear you. But if you come over here, you can get noodle mitts. I can get noodle mitts for about £3.20 a pop, and pretty good noodle mitts that work on Western hands. I bought a batch of, I think, 2,000 noodle mitts many years ago in the old Carskin days, and they came in and they were basically it was kind of 2 fingers or 3 at a stretch, and they was made for little tiny Eastern hands.
Yeah, but it's gonna be harder to shove those all in a bucket of water. So I started out just throwing them all in the bucket of water and then start washing the car.
Gotcha. No, well, it's good and original stuff. And
either way.
Yeah. Either way, you're a 2-bucket man at most now, with many, many cloths.
Yes.
Rotary DA, we have done that. Now, this is an interesting question, and I know you're going to have a long, long answer to this, and it's going to have loads of caveats and conditions because nobody can give a straight answer.
Okay.
Coating or wax? See, you're struggling. You see, everybody else just wants to blurt it out. But
when you asked me this question, it wasn't long for me.
No, it wasn't. No.
If I had to pick just one, I'd go with wax.
Good man.
You know why? Because most of the cars I work on are garage queens. They don't need a coating.
And it's sometimes older paint, and the wax suits them more than the coating where you're going to be using solvents that could be difficult with old paint.
But also, I try to match the LSP, the last step product, to the owner. What can they do?
So they need a wax.
Yeah. So if I put a ceramic coating on someone's car and then they got an issue where they got to buff it, now they got to buff it, they got to strip it, they got to put the coating. That's beyond their skill level. If I put a wax on there, most of the people I would work for are capable of firing up a porter cable, taking the swirls and scratch out, and then slapping on a wax. See, that's really simple. So sometimes it's better just to keep things simple than to make them more complicated than they have to be.
I think it's a very valid answer.
And I've done this, and I know you guys have done this too, where you're taking a machine polish and put wax in a car and then said, what do you think's on here? And everybody goes, oh, that's a coating. It's a wax.
Well, I have a bit of a confession to make. I was always a wax man. I know I look exceptionally hairy and unwaxed, but I was definitely a wax man. However, I got General Vod, which is an old Audi A8 from the 90s, got him coated because I was going to sell him and then decided against it somehow. Well, nobody would buy him, actually. Funnily enough, Kelly's going to snigger at that. But so he's got this Scotch Me coating on, which is made by, well, we know it's made by It's Good. And by God, life is so much easier when it comes
Yeah.
to washing it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really enjoying coating lifestyle.
I do too. And my wife loves the fact that I keep her car coated. So if it gets some dirt over it, like when they come through.
I
and
love
clean,
how the Datsun's her car.
What's that?
Is it the Datsun we're talking about here? The
No, no,
Infinity.
No.
Oh, she's got a separate car.
Yeah, she got her own car. Yeah, she has a
So-
QX30.
Okay, so you've got no excuse for the Infinity. I mean, I appreciate you can't have a mudder, but I thought it was like a shared vehicle. In which case, fair enough.
No. So
Shame.
So every week the lawn care people come by. So they cut the lawn, then they blow, and so the cars get covered with dirt. And if she knows it's going to rain, she'll, instead of parking under the cover, she'll park it outside, and the hard rain will just completely clean off. So I'm completely down with that. But if you go back to something that's just kept in the garage, not a daily driver, 66 GTO, 72 Mustang Mach 1, the kind of muscle cars and stuff that I really enjoy working on, even like Ferraris and stuff. I mean, if they're just not daily drivers, they will look just fine and hold up just fine with just a normal conventional wax. And some of the waxes that are out there nowadays are really nice.
Yeah, the hybrid stuff is
paint
lasts.
sealants.
Yeah, they last really well. And they've got, ultimately, they say, oh, it's a wax, and it's sort of, they feel like it's natural paste. Is it bollocks? There's a little bit of carnauba in there, but a lot of it is just polymers and siloxanes and stuff like that, which is the same tech they're using in other stuff.
But it's really geared toward, I gear it towards what's best for the owner.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. What's going to be best for them?
No, that makes absolute sense. So now we have some more quickfire questions. Ferrari or Porsche?
Oh, Ferrari.
Okay. There wasn't a wrong answer to that, by the way, but there is a wrong answer to the next question. Okay, and there's, there'll be penalties. Subaru or Mitsubishi?
Subaru.
Good man, well done.
Come on.
If I was the Emperor Rome, I'd be doing this with my thumb. This is going to be a contentious one. Kelly, close your ears, turn your hearing aid off. Flex or Rupes?
I know.
Here's what I believe.
I
believe everybody should get the tool that they like the best. And if you spend enough
Mr.
time behind
Diplomat.
any tool, you can make it dance on paint. So I'm a Flex guy. I like the 8mm gear driven tools, and I love their cordless rotary, their new Pixie. I wrote a book for Flex. I wrote a book for Rupes. So I'm an equal opportunity exploiter. And I think we can all get the job done with whatever tool we have, as long as we learn how to become good with that tool.
Okay, so Flex. And final question, and I think I know the answer to this as well. A Sunday drive or a Sunday detail? You have a Sunday to yourself. You've done church. You've done the family commitments. You've done everything that you need to do on Sunday, and you've got the afternoon to yourself. Ain't got no wife or kids moaning and groaning. You locked them in a cupboard or something, and it's just you and your car. Do you A, sit around washing it, or B, hoon it down the road?
Driving.
Yeah.
Gotta enjoy it.
The best answer we had actually so far on this was John Hole, who said, no, first you go out and drive it, and then you come back and detail it.
There you go.
And then we had somebody else who actually said it the other way around. He said, you clean it and then you go out and drive it. And we were like sitting there going, but then it's going to be dirty again. But,
Can you remember what I think I actually just said detail it. Sorry.
I don't think you did,
Didn't I? I can't
No, I
remember.
don't know. I think you said it was my day job. What do I want to do that on a Sunday for?
Yeah.
So for me, once I got all my other duties done, I'd go to the pool and have a margarita.
Which I was waiting to come, because I've had this all weekend, and I'm like, you get.
So you're trying to get you into a pool with a margarita?
Well, he's invited me over there, but
yeah, I've been invited over repeatedly, but no actual air tickets provided. That's the difficulty. I'm sitting there thinking it's a long swim, and I'm not a good swimmer like you. I just drown with style.
That's like swimming.
It is like swimming. Give me a tank and I'm fine. I just can't keep my head above the water.
I can't run, but I can fall down fast. It's kind of like running.
Yeah, it's not flying, it's gliding with style.
Sloppy, but
I stole that off Toy Story from many, many years ago. Anyhow, that just leaves me to say thank you very much, not only for coming in on this podcast when we are all absolute shattered. We've all had the plague. Basically, one of us brought the plague in. I'm not looking at anybody in particular, Mike. And it's a kind of a stuff comes out of both ends at the same time sort of plague.
Hey, I got it at Wax Stock.
Yeah. Well, you probably did, in fairness.
Yeah.
But thank you for spreading it around myself and Simon and Co and Kelly. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
I've got to go and sit on the M25 for 3 hours. And
you feel sorry for Mike that he's got to get up about 3:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock.
Yeah, something like that. Our plane leaves at 8:30.
So and you're back to Miami. And then I was talking to Yancy about this. He says he always puts you on a different part of the aeroplane from him. It's just like, I send him to the front, I sit in the back.
That's fine.
So anyway, thank you very much. And hopefully we can do this again at some point in the future.